Let's go!
Chapter 6 consists of the Koopa invasion as well as the Kong and Kremling disputes. Princess Toadstool has grown much closer to Mario since their most recent adventure they had together. She decides to invite Mario over to the castle to enjoy some delicious cake. This, of course, leads to the events of Super Mario 64 and its remake Super Mario 64 DS. Mario invites his brother, Luigi, as well as Yoshi and Wario to come with him. Mario and Wario have been on much better terms since they have been spending time together doing Picross. From this point on, they still have somewhat of a rivalry, but Mario will often invite Wario to spend time with him and his friends. Mario, Luigi, and Wario arrive and enter the castle, and it seems to be empty. Upon entering the castle, they are met with a gruff voice telling them to scram, and that nobody's home. Mario also hears another voice calling to them, and the three of them notice that all the doors in the castle lobby have been sealed, except for one. They enter one of the rooms and find a large painting of Bob-ombs marching. The voice beckons them into the painting. They jump into the painting and are transported to a mountain full of Bob-ombs. A Bob-omb buddy informs Mario that someone has attacked the castle, stole the Power Stars, and plans to take over the Mushroom Kingdom. He plans to convert the residents of the painting worlds into monsters, and plans to release them into the Mushroom Kingdom and replenish his army. Mario deduces that this must be the work of Bowser. The three are then captured by Bowser's minions. Yoshi arrives late, and a Lakitu informs him that Mario has not returned. Yoshi enters the castle and begins collecting the Power Stars in order to break the seals on the doors. He rescues Mario, who is being guarded by a massive Goomba. Then he rescues Luigi, who is kept in Big Boo's haunt by King Boo. King Boo is out for revenge against the Mario Bros after their past defeat. It's not specified exactly what the Boos did to Luigi, but up until this point he has been a very brave individual, never shrugging off a challenge or danger. But after this one event, Luigi has been scarred for life. From this point on, he's become the most timid and frightened coward, especially when confronted with ghosts. The Boos have become a PTSD trigger for Luigi due to the stress that they caused him while he was captured by them. They rescue Luigi from King Boo, and then they later free Wario as well. After retrieving enough Power Stars from Bowser's minions, they are able to fight Bowser, who has gained a massive amount of power from the Power Stars. The Power Stars are magical artifacts that grant power into their owner. The Mushroom Kingdom has many of them in order to protect themselves, but Bowser has used this same power against them. They defeat Bowser, and the inhabitants of the castle are freed from the walls. The portals to the painting worlds are sealed also. Everyone celebrates by eating Peach's cake. A short while later, Mama Star gives birth to Starfy. Papa Star and Mama Star are king and queen of Puff Top Palace at this point. They are Starfy's parents, and he is said to be 7 years old, so we can assume that 7 years before the legendary Starfy 1 takes place, he's born. A few months later, Mario and Wario work as archaeologists in Picross 2. They excavate ruins and find ancient artifacts. Shortly after that, Mario and his friends get together to race karts in Mario Kart 64. For whatever reason, Donkey Kong III is invited to participate instead of his father. This is his first time recreating with Mario and his friends, and it will not be his last. Mario and the Donkey Kong family go way back, and has likely had interaction with Donkey Kong III at this point. Donkey Kong Jr. does not spend time with Mario and his friends, and for whatever reason his son will go in his stead. It could be due to a falling out between Donkey Kong Jr. and his family, or something else entirely. Bowser once again joins them and again hosts one of the races at his castle. In mid-1997, Mario and his friends race motocross bikes in Excite Bike Bun Bun Mario Battle. On New Year's Day in 1998, Mario is returning home from a vacation when he discovers that Bowser has conducted a construction campaign to build high-rises in the Mushroom Kingdom, which are depriving the plant life of sunlight. Refusing to tolerate this, Mario goes into his room and brings out his mighty blue hammer. Foreman Spike is now working for Bowser, and with the help of his henchmen, try to stop Mario. This leads to the events of Wrecking Crew 98. Mario demolishes all of Bowser's skyscrapers, and Mario, Luigi, and Peach celebrate as their flowers return to life. Bowser attacks Foreman Spike after accusing Spike of using him to get revenge on Mario. Sometime around early 1998, Brash sets the Riverside race record, which lasts for 2 years. In Donkey Kong Country 3, Brash, one of the brothers Bear, yells at Dixie and Kitty for beating his 2-year standing record. Takes place 2 years before Donkey Kong Country 3. In June of 1998, Banjo Pilot takes place. Banjo-Kazooie and many of the other residents of the Isle o' Hags host aircraft racing tournaments around the island. Banjo Pilot takes place right before Banjo-Kazooie because at the end of Banjo-Kazooie, Gruntilda is crushed by a giant boulder, but in Banjo Pilot she hasn't decayed into a skeleton like she has in Banjo-Tooie, the sequel to Banjo-Kazooie. With this information we can assume that Banjo Pilot takes place before Banjo-Kazooie, and because Banjo and Kazooie are relatively unacquainted with many of the characters that they meet in Banjo-Kazooie, we can also assume that the races took place very shortly before the events of Banjo-Kazooie. On June 29th of 1998, Banjo-Kazooie takes place. Gruntilda Winkybunion, an evil witch native to the Isle o' Hags, with the help of her servant Klungo, has completed a diabolical machine designed to suck the physical beauty out of any creature, which Gruntilda can then absorb. She built the machine out of spite towards her cutesy sister Bruntilda Winkybunion, who inherited the family good looks and left Gruntilda slightly disadvantaged in that department. She seeks reassurance from her cauldron that she is the nicest looking wench, but is instead informed that Tootie the honey bear is the cutest and sweetest girl in all the land. In a fit of rage, Grunty grabs her broom and storms off to find Tootie to use her machine on. Meanwhile, Tootie is on her way to visit her older brother Banjo, and stops to talk with Bottles the Mole. Grunty then swoops down and kidnaps Tootie. Kazooie, a red-crested Breagle, hears the commotion and tried to wake up her lazy friend Banjo the honey bear. When they get outside, Bottles informs them that Tootie was kidnapped by Grunty, and that she was taken to her lair. The duo enter the lair. They also receive help from Mumbo Jumbo, a shaman who was a former teacher of Grunty's, until she used bad magic to transform his face into a mask. They traverse her lair as well as the many worlds that her lair is linked to. They rescued the Jinjos which Grunty had trapped in the various worlds. They also receive help from Bruntilda, who gives them personal information about Grunty which they use to get past her quiz show, such as the color of her underwear or the name of her first and only boyfriend, which is likely where the ring on her left finger is from. They rescue Tootie and Grunty escapes. Banjo and the rest of his friends then go back to his house to celebrate, but Tootie is not happy with this. She orders Banjo and Kazooie to finish the job, and make sure Grunty doesn't try something like this again. They battle her on top of her tower and with the help of the Jinjos defeat her. She then plummets from her tower and is crushed by a massive boulder. 2 months after Grunty's defeat, Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge takes place. Well, at least the very beginning and ending of the game. As previously stated, the bulk of this game takes place about 20 years in the past. It's stated in the intro that the beginning of this game takes place 2 months after Banjo-Kazooie. Grunty is still stuck under the boulder, and Grunty's minion builds a robot that she transfers her spirit into. She steals Kazooie and travels about 20 years into the past. Mumbo sends Banjo back in time in order to make sure Grunty doesn't disturb the space-time continuum. After defeating Grunty, Banjo and Kazooie travel back into the future, as well as Grunty's spirit, where she remains trapped under the boulder that Klungo goes back to trying to move. She also asks Klungo to go and send a message to her sisters to come and rescue her. A couple of months later, Mario and his good friends are spending time together. Wario and Donkey Kong III are there as well. The group starts arguing who of them is the superstar. Toad suggests that everyone follow him to the Mushroom Village where they throw a massive party board game competition, where the goal is to see who can collect the most Power Stars. Up next is Mario Party. Bowser also joins in as well, whose role is to terrorize the players during the game. Koopa Kid, Bowser's 8th child, assists him as well during the party, which will become a reoccurring theme for Mario's future parties as well. Sometime in early 1999, Bowser Jr. is born. This is assumed due to his young age and his first appearance, Super Mario Sunshine, which takes place in 2002. Bowser Jr. is Bowser's 9th child and is assumed to be from a different mother than the Koopalings and Koopa Kid because he is Bowser's favorite child, and also because he never spends time with Koopa Kid and Bowser Jr. at the same time. The only time Bowser ever spends time with Koopa Kid is when he's attending Mario's parties, and he includes Bowser Jr. in his nefarious schemes, along with the Koopalings. Because of the disjoint, it's a fair assumption to make. Also in early 1999, Kiddy Kong is born. The instruction manual of Donkey Kong Country 3 states that he is a toddler, and Donkey Kong Country 3 takes place in January of 2000. Next is Mario Golf for the Nintendo 64. Mario and his friends get together to compete in golf. Several other human characters participate as well. Sometime around 1999, a Pianta gets shipwrecked on a small island offshore of Delfino Island. In Super Mario Sunshine, this Pianta on this island tells Mario that he has been shipwrecked on this island for 3 years. 3 years before Super Mario Sunshine is July of 1999. Next is Conker's Pocket Tales. As previously mentioned, the Conker series takes place on the Mushroom World because Conker is in Diddy Kong Racing, which takes place on the Mushroom World. Conker is having a birthday party with his girlfriend Barry when an evil acorn kidnaps his girlfriend and steals his presents. Conker traverses through the forest and rescues Barry and his presents from the evil acorn's catacombs. The evil acorn tries to blow them up, but the explosion blasts him into the atmosphere. Next is Mario Golf and Mobile Golf for the Game Boy Color. A small group of humans practice golfing at the Marion Golf Club, which is located somewhere on Earth. One of these golfers becomes the Grand Champion and is able to enter the Toadstool Tour. They travel to the Mushroom World by getting launched out of a cannon and shooting to the clouds where the portal to the Mushroom World lies. Mario Tennis for the Game Boy and Mario Tennis Power Tour also show a similar method of traveling to and from the two worlds. They fly on a plane through a rainbow which leads to a portal to the Mushroom World. These three events confirm the existence of a permanently accessible portal that links the two worlds together. As stated in the manual for Super Mario Bros. 3, the Mushroom Kingdom is the entrance to the Mushroom World. This explains why it's possible to easily travel between the two worlds and why there are so many similarities between the two worlds and their technological progression. Anyways, they arrive at Peach's castle and golf with Mario and his friends and become the champion of the tour. Foreman Spike also makes an appearance. Near the end of the year 1999, Diddy Kong reaches full maturity. That must mean that the next event in the timeline is Donkey Kong Country, as well as its Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advanced re-releases. As stated previously, the earliest the game could logically take place is near the end of 1999, due to the assumption that it took about 10 years for Donkey Kong Jr.'s first child to mature, sire their son, and for Diddy Kong to fully mature. It wouldn't make sense to place Donkey Kong Country any later in the timeline because that would displace a whole slew of games even further from the actual release dates. Shortly before Donkey Kong Country, the Kong family leaves their home in the Rocky Valley and move to Donkey Kong Island. At this point in the timeline, Donkey Kong Sr. is referred to as Cranky Kong, Donkey Kong Jr. has mysteriously disappeared from the Kongs' lives, and Donkey Kong III is the main protector of the island. From this point on, Donkey Kong Sr. will be referred to as Cranky Kong, and Donkey Kong III will be referred to as Donkey Kong. It's been made abundantly clear what the relationship is between these three, and there's no need to keep clarifying that. One stormy night, Donkey Kong puts his nephew Diddy Kong in charge of guarding his banana horde for his hero training. But King K. Rool, the leader of the Kremlings, coveted Donkey Kong's banana stockpile, the largest on the island and possibly the entire world. King K. Rool rules the entirety of Crocodile Island alongside his wife. He commands all of the Kremlings that inhabit it. He sends his Kremlings to raid the banana horde and kidnap Diddy Kong. The next morning, Cranky Kong wakes Donkey Kong up and whacks him with his cane. He mocks him for shirking his responsibilities and informs him that Diddy Kong and his banana horde are missing. Donkey Kong vows to hunt down the Kremlings, rescue Diddy Kong, and get his banana horde back. Cranky Kong notes that it was a pathetic plot for a video game to have, and states that he would be lucky if his game even sells 10 copies. Donkey Kong, tired of his grandfather's rambling, storms off and follows the trail of bananas left by the Kremlings. These fourth wall breaks don't really cause any paradoxes and don't affect the structure of the universe in any impactful way. As we will soon see, however, it does become a tool used to drive the plot for Donkey Kong Land. Anyways, Donkey Kong eventually finds Diddy Kong and the two of them travel around the island, defeating King K. Rool's minions and taking back Donkey Kong's giant bananas. They receive help along the way from Cranky Kong, as well as Donkey Kong's girlfriend Candy Kong, and their friend Funky Kong. They eventually find King K. Rool trying to load the banana horde onto his ship to take to Crocodile Island. They defeat King K. Rool and return the banana horde. King K. Rool then threatens to blow up Donkey Kong Island if they don't get off of his ship. They jump off his ship and allow him to sail back to Crocodile Island. About a week later, Cranky Kong is harassing Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, stating that their last adventure was more successful than he thought it would be, but it was only because of the fancy graphics and modern music. Donkey Kong retorts that Donkey Kong Country was more than just fancy graphics, it was just plain fun. Diddy Kong agrees and states that they worked hard fighting against King K. Rool. They still had the bumps to prove it. Cranky Kong asks if they really thought their adventure would be successful on an 8-bit system such as a Game Boy, and Diddy Kong affirmed that it would be, and even suggested letting the Kremlings steal the banana horde so they could get it back again, which would conveniently get him off of guard duty. Donkey Kong is furious and was hoping to loaf around the treehouse and watch the Banana Bowl. Cranky Kong later calls King K. Rool on the phone and arranges for him to steal the banana horde again. The next morning they wake up and find the bananas missing again. This leads to the events of Donkey Kong Land. They battle the Kremlings, defeat King K. Rool and get the banana horde back. Takes place directly after Donkey Kong Country due to Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong still having bumps and bruises from their last confrontation. A few days later, Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong begin dating. They are dating by the events of Donkey Kong Country 2, which is next in the timeline. This is stated in the instruction manual for the game. Also around the end of 1999, Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest takes place. Donkey Kong is relaxing on the beach one day when the Kremlings ambush him and capture him. Later that evening, the Kong family went out looking for him and found his smashed lawn chair and a ransom note from King K. Rool demanding that if they ever wanted Donkey Kong back, they would have to hand over the banana horde. While Cranky Kong was about to give up the banana horde, Diddy Kong insisted that he get him back. Cranky Kong laughed at him, but his girlfriend Dixie Kong stood up for him and declared that she would go with him too. Cranky Kong threatened that if he failed, then there would never be more than cheap cameo roles for him in future games. They hitched a ride on Engard and traveled to Crocodile Island, a massive vessel which is the homeworld of the Kremlings. They receive help from Cranky Kong as well as his wife Wrinkly Kong. Funky Kong and Swanky Kong also offer their assistance. They travel up Crocodile Island to King K. Rool's keep, where they find Donkey Kong. Before they can do anything, he is whisked away up to King K. Rool's flying croc. They battle him on his ship and free Donkey Kong, who punches him through the roof. They eventually find him again in the Crocodile Core, where they defeat him again and set off a chain reaction which sinks the entire island. But King K. Rool escaped and sails off into the sunset. Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Game Boy Advance is a retelling, as well as Donkey Kong Land 2 for the Game Boy. While Donkey Kong Land 1 and 3 have enough variation in the story to be considered their own entries in the timeline, Donkey Kong Land 2's story is similar enough to that of Donkey Kong Country 2's to be considered a retelling of the same story. A short while later, Mario and his friends again get together for Mario Party 2. They decide to make a world to build all of their dreams, but as they sat around debating what the land should be called, a Koopa Troopa informs the cast that Bowser has invaded their land. Toad decides that the land will be named after the superstar that defeats Bowser and saves all of them as well. They compete in another board game style competition, collecting power stars and earning coins. The winner then faces off against Bowser and bests him. Due to how the story is portrayed, it should be assumed that the creation of this new land has little to no bearing on the greater story. It's clearly an imaginative land that is made up for the purpose of having fun at the party. Bowser clearly enjoys being the villain during their little games. Next is Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie's Double Trouble. The Game Boy Advanced version is a retelling of the story. Months after their victory against King K. Rool, the Kongs were still celebrating. Dixie Kong joined them for a banana milkshake, but her boyfriend was nowhere to be found. She returned to his room to find a note stating that him and Donkey Kong went exploring the nearby islands, and that they would be back the next day. The next day, the duo still had not yet returned. Dixie began to worry and set out southward to the northern Cremisphere to find them. Wrinkly Kong, Funky Kong, and Swanky Kong also assist her on her journey, while Cranky Kong only wastes all of his bear coins on Swanky's minigames. Funky Kong dumps his babysitting duties onto Dixie Kong, and Kitty Kong, Dixie Kong's cousin, joins her on her journey. She begins to find all sorts of Kremlings that are loyal to a robotic creature named Chaos. As they travel the northern Cremisphere, they meet many of the brothers Bear, 14 bear brothers native to the area. They help them along the way and inform them of the location of Chaos. They defeat Chaos and discover that King K. Rool created it out of his wife's best pots and pans, with the intent to dominate the world. They defeat King K. Rool and free Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, who were brainwashed into controlling Chaos. They remark how impressive Dixie Kong was and that even Cranky Kong would be proud. Cranky Kong then shows up out of nowhere just to disagree with them. Donkey Kong Country 3 takes place in January of 2001 because the instruction manual states that the game takes place months after their previous victory against King K. Rool. There is also a calendar in Blue's Cabin which is on the month of January, which means that the game takes place in January. If Donkey Kong Country 2 takes place in the beginning of November, and Donkey Kong Country 3 takes place at the end of January, then both of these facts are true. About a month later, Donkey Kong Land 3 takes place. An announcement has been made on Donkey Kong Island that a contest would be held to see who could find the fabled lost world located in the Northern Hemisphere first. Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, and King K. Rool all set out to find the lost world, leaving Dixie Kong home to babysit Kiddy Kong. Knowing her abilities and having recently saved Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, she sets out with Kiddy Kong to locate the lost world before the others. They travel through the Northern Hemisphere, receiving help from Wrinkly Kong and the Brothers Bear. They eventually find King K. Rool in the Lost World. They defeat him and they win the contest. Up next is Wario Land 3. Wario is flying his plane on a lovely day without a cloud in the sky. Suddenly his plane engine began to sputter, and he crashed into the woods below. Wario finds a cave that contained a beautiful music box. After winding it up, it played no tune. In a flash of light, Wario is sucked into the music box. A hidden figure informs Wario that he is a god who once protected the world inside the music box, until an evil being sealed away his magical powers into 5 music boxes. In exchange for freeing it, the figure promises to send Wario back to his own world, and let him keep any treasures he finds. Wario, being the greedy guy he is, sets out to find the music boxes, and as much treasure as he can get his hands on. He also receives help from Mad Scienstein, who is a servant of the hidden figure. The world contains many monsters that try to stop Wario, but he defeats them all. He eventually finds the 5 musical boxes, but they play a song that frees the sealed being, an evil clown-like demon named Rudy. Rudy transformed all of the inhabitants of the music box world into monsters just before he was sealed away. Wario defeats him and all of the monsters are returned back to normal. An old man explains that they tried to stop him from helping Rudy to return to his old form, and that they didn't expect him to defeat him. They then send Wario home with all of his treasures. A short while later is Mario Tennis for the Game Boy Color. The story consists of either Alex or Nina trying to work their way up the ranks at the Royal Academy, a school for gifted tennis players. With the help of the coaches and teachers, they start out in the junior class, and through grit and determination work their way up to the senior class and eventually the varsity squad. After winning, Mario, the greatest tennis player in the world, invites them to the Mushroom Kingdom to meet them in person. They travel to the Mushroom World and meet with Mario and his friends in Peach's castle. Wario, Waluigi, and Bowser then persuade them to face off against Mario to see him lose, as none of them have been able to beat him. They then face off against Mario and win. Everyone celebrates the champion. A few weeks go by and Klungo, the minion of Gruntilda, is trying to move the boulder that Grunty is trapped under. As stated in the opening, Banjo-Tooie takes place 2 years after Banjo-Kazooie, which actually was released about 2 years after its predecessor. Banjo, Kazooie, Bottles, and Mumbo were all playing cards one stormy night, when suddenly a terrible shaking fell upon them. A large digging machine had tunneled through the side of the mountain. Mumbo went outside to investigate, and saw 2 witches emerge from the digging machine. Grunty's 2 sisters, Mingella and Blabelda, then cast a spell which destroys the rock, and Grunty emerged as a skeleton. She is dissatisfied with her skeletal form, and Blabelda informs her of their plan to help her after they return to their castle. Just then, Mingella spots Mumbo and Grunty pursues. Mumbo runs back to Banjo's house and tells them that Grunty is coming. They take cover, but Bottles doesn't believe him, and Grunty blasts the house with an explosive spell. Her sisters are about to leave without her, so she hurries back to the digging machine and leaves Klungo behind. Banjo, Kazooie, and Mumbo survey the damage. Grunty destroyed their house and killed Bottles. They set out to avenge their friend. They follow the Digger Trail, and they are stopped by Klungo, who they swiftly deal with. They then travel to the Jinjo village, where they receive help from King Jingling. Grunty and her sisters use their invention, the Big O Blaster, to suck the life force from the Jinjo village, which turns their king into a zombie. Their plan is to use the Big O Blaster to restore Grunty to her normal self, but it needs time to recharge. In the meantime, Banjo-Kazooie visit Bottles' wife and 2 kids, but are unable to give them the news. They receive help from Jam Jars, Bottles' brother, as well as Master Jiggy Wiggy, Honey Bee, Mumbo's arch-rival Humbawumba, as well as Mumbo. They travel around the Isle o' Hags and eventually make it to Cauldron Keep, where they defeat Klungo one last time, who decides to abandon Grunty due to his beatings causing him to be less and less handsome, which might cause his wife to not want him anymore. They face off against Minghella and Blabilda in Grunty's game show, but are mercilessly killed off by their sister. They use the Big O Blaster to blast King Jingling and Bottles with Life Force, which resurrects them. Banjo and Kazooie then face off against Grunty in the Hag 1, and destroy it, which dismembers Grunty, leaving her as nothing but a head. On December 12th of the year 2000, a Millennium Star is born in the center of the universe, and it falls from the sky down to the Mushroom World. Mario and his friends are relaxing outside of Peach's castle when the Millennium Star crashes down. They begin arguing over who should get to keep it, but then the Millennium Star challenges them to a test, and whoever passes his test gets to become the superstar of the universe. They then play Mario Party, and the winner gets to keep the real Millennium Star. These, of course, are the events of Mario Party 3. Next is Dr. Mario 64. Sometime before the events of Dr. Mario 64, Rudy, the clown-like demon, has escaped the Music Box world, along with Mad Science Dean, who serves him. But flu season has struck the Mushroom Kingdom and he ends up getting sick. He sends Mad Science Dean to go find a cure for him. Meanwhile, Dr. Mario rushes about curing patients all day with his Mega Vitamins. Wario seeks to steal the Mega Vitamins to sell them to get rich. Mad Science Dean breaks into Mario's house and steals the Mega Vitamins in order to cure Rudy, but Wario sees this and chases after him. Mario notices his Mega Vitamins are gone and sees Wario running away. Mario chases after him and battles Wario and defeats him, but notices that Wario doesn't have the Mega Vitamins. Mario and Wario see Mad Science Dean and chase after him. He leads them back to Rudy's castle. Mario challenges Rudy and defeats him. Wario then steals the Mega Vitamins, but then he overdoses, which turns him into a vampire. Mario challenges him and defeats him. Mario learns that Rudy just had a cold and Mario cures him. A month later, Conker the Red Squirrel is at a night bar binge drinking, and Conker leaves his girlfriend Barry a message letting her know that he will be home late. He gets lost on his way home due to drunkenness. This leads to the events of Conker's Bad Fur Day. The Fairy Panther King orders Professor Von Cripplespack to fix his side table that is missing a leg. He suggests using a red squirrel and sends his minions to capture one. Conker is trying to find his way home and ends up fighting a giant pile of singing fecal matter. He also meets up with his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Count Batula, who learns that Conker is his relative after attempting to suck his blood, only to then accidentally fall into his own grinder. Conker later gets involved with the war against the Teddies and helps defeat them. He meets up with Barry and is enlisted to help in a bank robbery. It ends up being a trap that the Fairy Panther King set up in order to capture Conker. Barry is shot and killed by Don Weasel, and a parasite explodes out of the Panther King's chest. Von Cripplespack explains how he planted the parasite in the king in order to get revenge, and orders it to kill Conker for what he did to his creations, the Teddies. He then flies the throne room into outer space, and Conker opens the airlock. Von Cripplespack is then sucked into outer space, and Conker puts on an air suit and fights the alien parasite, and just before it is about to kill him, the game freezes up. Conker makes a deal with the programmer to not let anyone know about the bug if he gives him a weapon. He is given a katana and cuts the head off of the alien. Conker is crowned as king by the inhabitants of the kingdom, even though he didn't want to be king. He then closes by making a remark about how even though he has all the money in the kingdom, he wishes that he was back at home with Barry and a beer. He returns back to the pub and closes by remarking how the grass is always greener and how you don't realize what you have until it's gone. A short while later, Mario and his friends meet up again for more kart racing in Mario Kart Super Circuit. Next is Wario Land 4. While reading the morning paper and picking his nose, Wario reads about the legendary Pyramid of Shakura and the many treasures it was said to contain. Upon arrival, he finds a black cat which leads him deeper inside the pyramid, where he plunders many treasures. He eventually finds the innermost sanctum, where the evil ruler of the pyramid lies, the Golden Diva. The cat gets swallowed by the Golden Diva. Wario defeats the Golden Diva and frees the cat. Wario grabs all of the treasures and the pyramid starts to crumble. Mad Science Dean was also doing archaeological research at the pyramid and was barely able to escape with Wario. He escapes and the cat then transforms into Princess Shakura, the ancient ruler of the pyramid who was cursed by the Golden Diva. The princess rewards Wario with a kiss for freeing her and is taken away by angels. Wario heads back to Diamond City and daydreams on how to spend all of his money. A few weeks later, Luigi gets a letter in the mail informing him that he had won a mansion in a contest that he never entered. He calls Mario and tells him to meet him at the mansion in the middle of Boo Woods. This leads to the events of Luigi's Mansion and Luigi's Mansion DS. Mario gets there first, but is captured by King Boo. Luigi later shows up and enters the mansion. Luigi, still having PTSD from when he was captured by King Boo, is terrified and is attacked by a ghost. Luckily, Professor Elvin Gadd saves him using the Poltergust 3000. They return to Egad's workshop where he tells him about how he has been researching paranormal activity and how this mansion appeared out of nowhere, and that King Boo has captured Mario. He gives Luigi the Poltergust and teaches him how to battle ghosts with it. Suddenly, Egad from the future contacts them through his computer. Future Egad then uses his time machine to send Luigi back in time in order to outsource his training. Luigi is a doppelganger of Luigi, who is made from an ectoplasmic goo-like substance. He was created by Egad and sent back in time from sometime around the end of 2013. This is assumed due to the fact that Luigi is absent from Luigi's Mansion 2, also known as Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, which takes place in early 2012, but is present in Luigi's Mansion 3, which takes place in early 2013. Luigi's Mansion 3 takes place in 2013 for reasons which will be explained once it becomes more relevant. Luigi and Luigi travel through the mansion, battling ghosts, collecting treasures, and searching for Mario. They eventually find Mario, who is trapped in a portrait by King Boo, and King Boo transforms himself into Bowser. They defeat King Boo and bring the portrait of Mario back to Egad. Egad, with his 60-plus years of experience, is able to free Mario from the painting. With the treasure that Luigi gained from his adventure, Egad is able to build him a new house, as thanks for returning his ghost collection. From this point on, Luigi is depicted as very cowardice, especially of the paranormal. As previously mentioned, this is due to being kidnapped by King Boo in Super Mario 64 DS, but his chronic paranoia was only exacerbated by this terrifying experience. Up next is SSX Tricky. Many snowboarders from all over Earth, all of which have been mentioned previously, compete in snowboarding races and trick competitions. They compete on tracks from all over Earth. As mentioned previously, the SSX series is included in the timeline because Mario, Luigi, and Peach are playable characters in SSX on Tour. Several months later on Earth, several NBA teams from around the country compete in street basketball. This is depicted in NBA Street. The NBA Street series is included in the timeline because Mario, Luigi, and Peach participate in NBA Street Volume 3. It could be possible to calculate most all of their birthdays, but since there isn't any character profile information about the players in game, it wasn't confirmed in universe. Sometime around mid-2001, Egad sells the portrait of King Boo at a garage sale. The third party mishandles it, and King Boo is freed. In Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, Egad states that he sold the King Boo portrait at a garage sale. King Boo appears and attacks Mario in Super Mario Sunshine, which is next in the timeline. Thus, it can be assumed that he was released shortly before the events of the game.